The medics worked in silence at first, their four-jointed hands moving with mechanical precision as they cut away the ruined armor from the human soldier's chest. The scent of charred metal and blood hung thick in the sterile chamber, an odor the ship's filters hadn't yet stripped from the air. For the alien attendants, it was another specimen, another pitiful remnant of a skirmish already forgotten by their superiors. The war with humanity was considered less a war than a harvest. Yet the body on the table defied their expectations, and the silence soon cracked. "These lesions are irregular," one medic muttered, mandibles clicking nervously. "They don't align with plasma scoring." "Or concussive impact," another answered. "The tissue patterns, they are older than that." The commander overseeing the examination tilted his elongated head, amusement tugging at his lipless mouth. "Perhaps they scar themselves deliberately. A primitive attempt at courage. Ritual pain is not uncommon among savages." His voice was smooth, practiced in disdain, and it earned a ripple of dark laughter from the guards posted nearby. The human did not stir. His chest rose and fell with shallow rhythm, the kind of breath that hovered on the boundary between survival and oblivion. His face, though half hidden beneath burns and dust, carried a strange composure, as though unconsciousness itself had conceded him a quiet dignity. The medics prepared the analysis probe, a towering column of machinery that hummed to life and extended tendrils tipped with sensors finer than any scalpel. The commander watched with a predator's patience. He had seen thousands of these examinations, and the same way: genetic charts, weakness profiles, a tidy report that reduced an enemy to catalogued inferiority. He expected no difference now. But when the probe's glow passed across the human's wounds, the machine shuddered, faltered, and emitted a warbling tone that froze every medic in place. Error codes flooded the display. The tendrils retracted in confusion, then extended again, stabbing the air as if unwilling to touch the subject further. Finally, after long seconds of alien murmurs and nervous recalibration, the screen solidified into a single message. Recognition. Survivor of extinct civilization X. The medics hissed in disbelief. One staggered back, as though the words themselves burned. The commander's smile lingered, but his eyes narrowed. "Repeat," he ordered coldly. The machine obeyed, unblinking, unchanging. Survivor of extinct civilization X. A chill settled over the chamber. Civilization X was a name whispered in the Empire's archives, a reminder of a campaign so distant in time it had become half legend. They had been annihilated in fire, their fleet scattered, their worlds consumed. No survivors were ever recorded, no fragments permitted to remain. To discover one now, and among humans, this was a contradiction that clawed at the Empire's pride. The commander leaned closer, studying the human's scars with new suspicion. They were not random after all. The patterns resembled impacts from weapons long obsolete, designs thought buried with X. He felt a flicker of unease, swiftly drowned beneath arrogance. "Machines cling to ghosts," he said dismissively. "This is no descendant of a fallen enemy. Merely a broken human that confuses your instruments." Yet his words lacked conviction, and the medics exchanged wary glances. The alien officer turned from the table, cloak brushing the floor. "Dispose of the error in your records. Prepare him for transport. Let the science cast untangle the myth when we return to high orbit." But one guard, braver or more foolish than the rest, asked, "And if the reading is true?" The commander paused. For a heartbeat, silence gripped the room. Then he laughed, sharp and humorless. "Then the galaxy has recycled its nightmares. And we will erase them again." Outside the medbay, the Empire's fleet cut through the void toward a blue-green world glimmering with fragile light. Earth. To the commander, it was just another planet to be cleansed, another nest of resistance to stamp beneath the heel of Empire. His voice echoed through the bridge as he issued the order. "Commence bombardment when ready. Burn the homeworld. Burn it clean." From orbit, fire rained. Cities dissolved beneath plasma storms. Towers melted into rivers of molten glass. Human transmissions filled the ether, desperate, scattered, Yet none of them begged for mercy. The commander watched the destruction with an indulgent smile. So ends another species that believed itself important. But amid the crackling interference of broken signals, a broadcast pierced through every channel. It was not frantic, not pleading. A calm human voice carried across the void with unnerving clarity. We warned you. You have mistaken our silence for weakness. This is your first and final mistake. The commander frowned, a ripple of irritation tightening his jaw. Empty bravado, he said, though the bridge crew shifted uneasily. There was something in the tone, too measured, too certain, that gnawed at confidence. He dismissed the thought, turning back to the burning sphere below. In the med bay, the human survivor stirred faintly, his eyes half opening. For the first time since capture, he exhaled a sound, barely a whisper, yet unmistakably deliberate. You woke us up. The words were ragged, carried on a broken breath, but they lodged like shrapnel in the medic's minds. One stepped back, trembling. Another glanced toward the commander, whose expression hardened though a flicker of doubt betrayed him. The alarms of the fleet blared suddenly. Unexpected anomalies, shadows of movement at the edge of scanners. The commander's amusement returned, brittle but insistent. Scare tactics, he declared. Let them come. We will bury their ghosts again. Yet for the first time, he avoided the human's gaze, as though the half-conscious eyes held something older than defiance. Something patient. Something waiting. And the machines, silent now, kept their verdict on record. Survivor of extinct Civilization X. Would you like me to continue straight into Section 2, 1,000 words, with the same pacing, or do you want to first expand this into more dialogue-heavy interactions between the alien commander and the survivor to deepen their dynamic before the war escalates? The chamber lights dimmed as the interrogation began, the alien commander seated in a raised dais above the human prisoner. The man was still bound to the table, his body covered in burns and scars, yet his gaze no longer drifted with the haze of near death. He watched his captors with an unsettling steadiness, as though the restraints meant nothing. The commander studied him in turn, lips curved in a sneer. You are resilient for a fragile creature. But resilience, without purpose, is meaningless. Tell me, what are you? The man did not answer. He blinked once, slow and deliberate, and returned his eyes to the blank ceiling. The silence dragged until one of the medics broke it nervously. Commander, perhaps he cannot. Do not mistake refusal for inability, the commander snapped. He leaned closer, lowering his voice, so the words struck like venom. Our instruments recognized you as something you cannot be, a descendant of those we exterminated ages ago. Speak, or we will peel your memories apart layer by layer. The human's lips twitched in the faintest shadow of a smile. His voice was hoarse, cracked from smoke and blood, but it carried an edge of composure. You already did that once, didn't you? You burned a civilization to ash. Yet here I am. The guard stiffened. The commander's claws tightened on the railing. A fluke, he spat. A misinterpretation by faulty machines. You are human, backward, provincial, not worth the resources we expend to annihilate you. Then why are you afraid? The man whispered. The words struck deeper than any weapon. The medics shifted uneasily, one muttering a prayer to a forgotten deity. The commander barked an order to silence them, but in his chest he felt a crack of unease. His gaze lingered on the prisoner's scars, and for the first time they seemed less like wounds and more like history written in flesh. Before he could demand further answers, the ship's bridge summoned him. Enemy signals had been detected. Reluctantly, the commander left the chamber, ordering the guards to keep the human sedated. Yet as he walked the corridor, the calm broadcast from Earth replayed in his mind. We warned you. This is your first and final mistake. On the bridge, officers reported confusion. The colonies they had raised were empty. Ghost installations. Habitats stocked with false life signs and decoy infrastructure. Impossible, the commander hissed. We saw them burn. You burned shells, the navigation officer corrected quietly, her crest feathers trembling. The true colonies were never there. The realization spread like poison through the crew. Humanity had not been caught unprepared. They had baited the Empire. The commander tried to rally their pride. So, they fooled us with shadows. Then we crushed the heart. Their homeworld still burns beneath us. But the communications officer interrupted. Incoming transmission, Commander. Not from the planet. From orbit. The view screen lit with the image of a human admiral, calm, uniform pristine despite the firestorm raging below. His expression was neither pleading nor panicked. He spoke as though reading a verdict already sealed. You wanted a war. You wanted to see our extinction. What you never understood is that we've studied yours. The transmission cut. A silence followed, heavier than any bombardment. Then alarms screamed as wormholes tore open across the system. Human fleets emerged with surgical precision, targeting supply ships and command relays rather than engaging in reckless duels. Every strike was calculated to unravel the Empire's logistics, leaving their mighty dreadnoughts stranded, bleeding, useless. The commander gripped the railing, forcing calm into his voice. Coincidence. Guerrilla tactics. They cannot sustain this. But even he heard the hollowness in his tone. In the medbay, the prisoner stirred again as the ship shook under distant impacts. A guard, unnerved, demanded, "What are your people doing?" The man's eyes opened fully now, steel gray and unblinking. "Not people," he murmured. "Descendants. Survivors. Children of the ones you tried to erase. You thought we forgot. We didn't." Fear crept into the guard's posture, though he masked it with a scoff. "Your species is young. You cannot possibly remember." "Memory doesn't fade when it's written in blood," the man said. "It waits. And when someone like you stirs it awake, it answers." On the bridge, the Empire's fleet struggled to adapt. Every countermeasure was anticipated. Every attempt at retreat cut off. The commander ordered more fire on Earth, desperate to salvage control, but his gunners reported new interference. Orbital defense arrays, long hidden beneath continents and oceans, were rising, their barrels aimed skyward with terrifying accuracy. The commander's voice dropped to a growl. "This is impossible. They are primitives. They could not have concealed this from us." Yet the evidence blazed across the screens. Earth was not a defenseless world scrambling to resist. It was a fortress waiting to spring its trap. Humanity had been preparing for centuries, perhaps longer. The officers exchanged glances of unease, and for the first time their commander saw doubt in their eyes. Pride alone could not disguise the truth. The Empire had miscalculated. He stormed back to the medbay, fury smoldering beneath his skin. The human met his gaze with the same infuriating calm. "You think you can frighten us with old ghosts?" the commander snarled. "You think a few hidden weapons change the scale of empire?" The man coughed, a wet rasp, but his smile lingered. "It isn't the weapons that matter. It's the will. You never understood it. You never believed anyone could fight you to the end. But we were born from endings. We learned how to outlast them." The commander raised a claw, tempted to end the insolence with one decisive strike, but he hesitated. Killing the man would not erase the gnawing dread that his words planted. For the first time in his long career, the commander recognized what his prey was capable of. A new tremor shook the ship as another wormhole opened nearby, disgorging a formation of human carriers. Officers' voices crackled over comms with rising panic. The Empire's fleet was unraveling, its arrogance met with cold precision. The commander turned back to the prisoner, his sneer faltering. "What are you?" The man's eyes gleamed in the dim light, and though his voice was barely more than a whisper, it carried the weight of inevitability. "We are what you failed to kill." The ship's alarms wailed, and the section ended with the commander staring at his prisoner, realizing that the central conflict had shifted. This was no longer a campaign of conquest. It was survival. The council chamber pulsed with low light, its obsidian walls carved to intimidate lesser beings who entered. Today, intimidation failed. Rows of alien ministers bickered, their voices rising into a cacophony of denial and alarm. Reports from the front poured across the chamber's central holodisplay, Fleets ambushed, supply corridors erased, colonies lost without a shot fired. The Empire's military machine, once the envy of the stars, bled from incisions too precise to be chance. At the center of it all, the commander stood rigid, his eyes reflecting the shifting projections of their unraveling empire. His testimony had already unsettled the assembly, yet he pressed forward with grim determination. You do not face humans as you imagine them, tribal, backward, vulnerable. They are the inheritors of something older. Their patience has been strategy. Their silence has been preparation. If we persist in arrogance, we court annihilation. The High Minister scoffed, raising a jeweled hand as if to brush away the words. We are the apex. No fledgling race can topple centuries of dominion. They are pests masquerading as predators. The commander's mandibles tightened. Pests do not bleed us at will. They do not erase our fleets without lifting their voices. I've seen their survivor, scarred by weapons we buried in legend. Your archives speak of Civilization X. Do not tell me I imagined his existence. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some ministers looked to one another in unease, while others glared at the commander as though he had uttered heresy. The council fractured before his eyes, factions of pride clashing with factions of fear. Even if true, a skeptic minister hissed, why should it matter? We extinguished X once. We will do it again. The commander leaned forward, his voice dropping into a low growl. You misunderstand. Humanity is not X-revived, it is X-evolved. They are not bound by memory of defeat, they are fueled by it. Every scar we thought erased, every lesson we thought buried, they carry them in their blood. The chamber fell briefly silent. The ministers shifted, some unwilling to meet his gaze. Then the High Minister struck the floor with his staff, the sound echoing like a gavel. Enough. Fear is poison, and you spread it freely. Humanity is a flame that will burn itself out. Our fleets will ensure it. But the commander no longer saw conviction in the minister's eyes, only brittle pride clinging to denial. He bowed stiffly, concealing the contempt burning within him, and withdrew from the chamber. Later, alone in his quarters, he replayed the human broadcast on a loop. The calm voice of their admiral carried no anger, no desperation, only certainty. We've studied your extinction. The words gnawed at him. What civilization spoke of its enemy's extinction as though it were a field manual? He brought up archived footage of human history, fragments scraped from conquered colonies. What he saw chilled him more than the fleet reports. Endless cycles of war, tribes devouring tribes, nations burning nations, weapons escalating beyond reason. Yet they endured. He watched footage of their world wars, their streets choked with fire and corpses, only for survivors to rise again, rebuild, and fight anew. The humans did not avoid destruction. They absorbed it, learned from it, grew sharper with every cut. His claws trembled as he closed the archives. This was not a species discovering war for the first time. This was a species sculpted by it. A chime interrupted his thoughts. A private channel connected, revealing the medbay officer. Her crest feathers drooped in unease. Commander, the prisoner has stabilized. He speaks more frequently now. Against his better judgment, the commander returned to the medbay. The human sat upright, pale but steady, restraints no longer taut against struggling limbs. His expression was calm, almost conversational. You saw it, didn't you? The human asked softly. Our history. You're beginning to understand. The commander's voice was a low rasp. You are not supposed to exist. Your kind should be dust. The human tilted his head. And yet here we are, breathing the same air. You destroyed a civilization once, but you never killed the will to endure. That's what frightens you. The words carved at the commander's defenses. For the first time, he did not respond with mockery. Instead, he studied the man, his scars, his eyes, the unshakable composure of someone who had already accepted pain and lived through it. You speak as though victory is inevitable, the commander said. But inevitability is a story only fools believe. The man's lips curved in a faint smile. Then call me a fool. But every battle you fight against us only sharpens us further. You can't win a war against something that thrives on survival itself." The commander felt the truth in those words more than he cared to admit. The Empire's fleets were mighty, but they were brittle, built for domination rather than endurance. Humanity, by contrast, was a species that had known only endurance, rising from ruin after ruin until ruin itself became their teacher. When he returned to the bridge, another report awaited him. 3 more sectors lost, governors begging for reinforcements that no longer existed. His officers whispered when they thought he could not hear, their confidence eroded, their pride reduced to hollow boasts. Fear spread faster than any human fleet. He stood at the viewport, watching the stars beyond, and for the first time in his career, he understood what it meant to feel hunted. Humanity had turned the Empire's arrogance into its own weapon, and every day that passed only fed the inevitable shift. The commander closed his eyes briefly, recalling the human's words in the med bay. "You woke us up." It was not bravado. It was prophecy, and he feared it was already too late to stop it. The ship's alarms blared suddenly, new wormhole signatures, closer than before. Officers scrambled, shouting over one another, but the commander remained still, staring into the abyss as though it had finally stared back. His pride had cracked. Fear had taken root. And for the first time, he wondered whether survival meant surrender. The first rupture opened without warning, an ink-black tear in space that vomited forth a fleet of human carriers. They emerged in absolute silence, their engines dimmed, their weapons already hot. The commander watched from the bridge as warning runes blazed across his consoles. More wormholes followed, each disgorging precision-crafted vessels that did not waste time with formation or ceremony. They arrived, struck, and vanished again, carving the Empire's fleet apart before it could respond. Officers shouted for orders, their voices edged with panic. The commander raised a claw to quiet them, though his chest burned with the same fear. He had spent his life believing in the Empire's invulnerability, yet here it fractured before his eyes, undone not by superior firepower, but by relentless calculation. Humanity was dismantling their pride, piece by piece, with the calm efficiency of a surgeon. "Target their carriers," an officer cried, but by the time the command transmitted, the carriers were gone, slipping back through wormholes as others appeared in their place. No fleet could pin them down. They fought like smoke given form, striking with impossible precision and then receding before retaliation could find purchase. The commander turned his gaze to the viewport. Earth gleamed below, no longer a helpless orb beneath their guns, but a fortress bristling with weapons they had never imagined. Orbital platforms stitched the void with fire, cutting through dreadnoughts like paper. He knew now that the burning cities had been part of the plan, bait to lure them into a false sense of triumph. He clenched his mandibles and forced steadiness into his tone. "Withdraw. Conserve what remains." But withdrawal was no longer an option. Human fleets pressed from every angle, not chasing glory, not offering spectacle, only inevitability. Each strike crippled supply nodes, destroyed communication spires, erased routes that had held for centuries. The Empire was collapsing not in a blaze, but in a suffocating silence. A transmission cut through the chaos, overriding all channels. The same human admiral appeared once more, his voice steady, his gaze unflinching. "This war is over. You can cling to arrogance and die, or you can surrender and live beneath order. Choose quickly. Our patience is not infinite." The bridge fell into silence. Some officers trembled, others muttered curses, but none could deny the truth. They were beaten. The commander's claws dug into the railing. Every instinct screamed for defiance, for one final blaze of resistance, but another instinct, older, buried, unwelcome, whispered that survival demanded submission. He turned sharply and strode from the bridge, leaving officers to debate their fates. The medbay door hissed open, revealing the human prisoner now unbound, sitting upright with quiet composure. Guards hovered nearby, but did not restrain him. Perhaps they feared his stillness more than his strength. The commander stopped before him, cloak heavy on his shoulders. Your fleets cut us apart as though you knew every seam, every weakness. Did you plan this for decades? Centuries? The man's eyes lifted, calm and unreadable. Longer. We studied you while you studied us. You thought we were scattered prey. We were sharpening ourselves on the edge of your contempt. The commander's voice dropped to a growl. You think yourselves conquerors now? No, the man said. We think ourselves awake. And once awake, we do not sleep again. The simplicity of it hollowed the commander's chest. His empire, built on fear and dominance, now trembled at the weight of those quiet words. He had mocked humans as fragile, yet fragility had become their strength. They did not resist destruction. They endured it, transformed it, and turned it into the weapon now dismantling his people's dominion. Alarms shook the chamber again. Reports screamed through comms, capital defenses breached, imperial governors captured alive, entire sectors cutting contact. The empire was disintegrating faster than the commander could command. He leaned closer to the human, eyes narrowing. If it were vengeance you sought, you would slaughter us all. Yet your admiral offers surrender. Why? The man's lips curved into a faint, tired smile. Because revenge is wasteful. Order is cleaner. You see only empire crumbling. We see the galaxy resetting. This is not about your death. It's about our beginning. The commander's throat tightened. In his long career, he had met countless enemies, each one snarling for victory, clawing for survival. None had unnerved him like this, a foe who demanded nothing, promised no glory, but simply dismantled him with inevitability. Moments later, the High Minister himself appeared on a fractured hololink, face pale beneath ornate regalia. His voice cracked under the weight of despair. Commander, the Council yields. Transmission drafted. Unconditional surrender to humanity. You will deliver it. The line collapsed, leaving only static. The commander stood frozen. He had fought countless wars, burned countless worlds, but never had he carried the weight of surrender. His eyes flicked to the human. The prisoner did not gloat, did not smile with triumph. He merely nodded once, as though acknowledging the inevitable. The commander straightened, his voice low but steady. If I accept this, what becomes of me? The man studied him for a long moment. You live. You govern under our watch. Your empire ends, but your people do not. It's more mercy than you've ever shown. The commander's pride twisted, yet he felt a spark of relief buried in the shame. He turned toward the guards. Transmit the surrender. Deliver every code, every archive. We live under human order now. The guards hesitated, but his tone brooked no defiance. Slowly, they carried out his command. Across the galaxy, the Empire's vast machinery shuddered to a halt. What had once been invincible now knelt before the species it had mocked as primitive. The commander lingered, gaze still locked on the human. You speak of beginnings, he said softly. What do you intend to build atop our ruins? The man's eyes, gray as storm clouds, did not waver. A galaxy that remembers. A galaxy that knows what happens when arrogance mistakes patience for weakness. You are the first lesson, not the last. The commander exhaled slowly, the weight of defeat settling into his bones. He expected fury, but what he felt instead was dread. Dread not for his empire's death, but for the galaxy's future under humanity's unflinching gaze. As the ship quieted, surrender confirmed across channels, the human leaned back on his cot, closing his eyes. The faintest whisper escaped his lips, barely audible, yet it carried more finality than any weapon. You woke us up. The commander stared at him, knowing the words were not meant for him alone but for the galaxy entire. And in that moment, with empires falling and a new order rising, he understood the truth he had resisted until the end. Humanity had not won a war. Humanity had begun an era.